David?
Hey guys, let me share my screen. Okay, so this will be about 25 minutes or so. Um, and basically the goal of this is just for me to give you, first of all, can you guys hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, and you can see my screen? Okay, so my goal for the next 25 minutes is just to give you the most helpful information that I can. It may be review for some of you, and for some of you it might be new information, but in any case, I hope it's helpful for you. I'm going to go over resources available to you on our website. Next, I'll go over some account code tips, super riveting stuff. Then I'll get into access to your budget report, which Alicia touched on. And then lastly, I'll go over just some other tips and reminders. Okay, so we have resources available to you on our budget department website. We have a chart of accounts which lists all the different account code segments. But what's new is you may not have seen this one. It's a PDF version, and it includes all the California School Accounting Manual definitions, what the different segments mean. You can Control F to find a certain word or code that you're looking for. So I'll show that to you in a minute. We also have a resource listing of programs, which this is like kind of like your table of contents of if you're looking at your budget, you're looking at a certain resource, you want to know, well, who do I contact? I have a question on Title I. Who do I contact in the budget group? This is your document you go to find. And we also have a benefits calculator on there to help you out with estimated cost of salary and benefits. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our website. I'll show you those different resources available to you. Okay, so, and just a heads up, we have a slightly new design, which Lupe helped out with. Actually, she did this, and now we have under forms and procedures, we have employee benefits information, financial information, position control, and time and effort reporting. So under financial information, we have the typical chart of accounts, which I think you've all seen. It's Excel. You know, it has the different tabs with the different fund resources. But the one I'm talking about is this one down here. It's the PDF. It's the same exact information in terms of account codes, but basically a lot more of it. It gives information about kind of the background, what each segment of the account string is, why it's used. So if you're ever, trying to fall asleep at night, this is something you could definitely pull up, and you'll go to sleep instantly almost. Just kidding. But again, you can Control F and find a certain word that you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for a certain goal. It's related to intervention. Control F, type in intervention. Okay, and it'll come up with, depending on what's in the document. In this case, it found 9. I'm going to search through. Right now, we're in the fund resource section. I'm looking for a goal. Okay, now we're in the goal section, and we happen to have a goal for intervention. Our goal code is 1305. And we're in the goal section. If you go up to kind of the header, it says, okay, goal segment definitions. So it's a listing of all our different goals and functions, object codes. So that's one resource for you. Okay. So another resource for you, other than the chart of accounts, which is like the master list of accounts, is the resource listing of programs. So under financial information, if you go to 2021 resource listing of programs, that's the one I'm referring to. And it's basically, we have the program title. It's organized by fund resource. So that's like the different funding sources that you may have in your budget, whether it's unrestricted discretionary or Title I, and then the budget contact person that you can contact for questions or budget transfer requests. Also, the program manager. So on the educational side, the person that oversees the program, and then the cabinet member overseeing the entire program. Okay, also under financial information, no, I'm sorry, it's under employee benefits. We have different rate sheets. So in case you're curious about, okay, I have to pay a salary and I know there's statutory benefits that go on top of it. We have a rate sheet here that displays what the different rates are. But new to this year, it's pretty cool. It's a 2020-21 benefits calculator. It's in Excel. So you just click on it. It's going to open up. And we have this employee benefits calculator or estimator. So basically the first thing you want to do is determine, okay, I'm going to select the pay type. Is it certificated staff? Is it classified staff? What type of staff is it? Is it extra duty, overtime, sub? So for example, I'm going to pick certificated extra duty. Okay. And then in this section, you're going to type in the salary amount, the estimated salary. That'll be the employee's gross pay. All right, say it's 2,000. Then it calculates for you the employee benefits. And then on the right, it's going to show you.
The form is not right.
Dave, we cannot see it on the screen.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Thank you for the heads up. I'm not sure why it's not showing. Can you see the website?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see the website. Okay. Well,
Okay, now we see your movements.
you don't see the Excel?
Dave, click on the Excel to open it up.
Yes.
David, I think you need to share your Excel sheet in the
Okay.
presentation option.
Let me try that. Thanks, you guys. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the new employee benefit calculator. It's a handy tool. And again, basically what you'll do is, depending on the type of employee, whether it's certificated or classified, whether it's a sub, a stipend, or extra duty, you select which one it is. In this example, I'll just pick certificated extra duty. Click on that. And then in the box to the right, you're going to put in the salary amount. This is an estimated salary amount, right? For the example, I'm going to put in 2,000. And the 2,000, the salary, that's going to be the employee's gross pay. Now, on top of that, right, the district has to pay employee benefits, statutory benefits. In this example, you have to pay out STRS, Medicare, SUI, workers' comp on top, right? So we end up with the total cost. It's not just the 2,000, but it's, I have to minimize my screen here. Oops. It's slightly more. It's sorry guys, it's a little bit noisy in the background. You may hear some background noise, but some neighbors are having some yard work done. But so 2,382 is total cost. So that's one tool for you, which you could use for budget transfers or like the extra pay form. You know, on the extra pay form, there's salary and benefits on that. Total cost, what we would budget would be that amount. Okay. Okay, so back to my slide presentation. Okay, now we're on to just some account code tips. Okay, first part of the segment is the fund resource, and this is basically what funding source are you using, right? That's the first thing. If I was an office manager, that's kind of the question. What funding source am I going to use to pay for this certain item? Is it unrestricted? Is it Title I? Is it going to be a donation account or some other account? Next thing I look at is the object code. Okay, what object am I going to use? The object code represents the type of expense, right? Is it certificated, classified? Is it supplies? Is it a consultant? Once that's determined, you'll want to look at the function. Okay, the function describes the activity. All right, so is it, function 1000, which is instruction, or some other function? Lastly, I look at the goal segment. Okay, what goal is most appropriate in this case, which describes the student population, or more specifically, the goal that you're trying to reach, whether it's maybe it's for AVID or some other very specific goal. And I'll talk about this more in later slides. Okay, this slide's all about object types and just the general breakdown of the different codes. Basically, if the object code begins with a 1, it's certificated salaries. If it begins with a 2, it's going to be classified salaries. A 3 is going to be employee benefits that go along with those salaries that have been budgeted. If the object code begins with a 4, it's going to be a tangible good, a book or supply. If it begins with a 5, it's going to be a service or other operating expense, such as a consultant or other contracts, something like that. And then if it begins with a 6, it's going to be a capital outlay. You don't see that a whole lot with the school budgets. Those are large expenditures, so an item must be 5,000 or more to be considered capital outlay. And then those are expenditure object codes, right? We also have revenue object codes, which you won't see a whole lot unless you have a donation account. So say you deposit a donation and you're looking, okay, where is it? It's going to show up first in your revenue account in that donation fund resource, and then we'll budget the expense as well. But if you're looking for the money, it shows up in revenue. Another object code that we have that you may not be familiar with, this may be new, but it's object code 9791. This will also show up in your funds available report, but this is called beginning fund balance. So basically you'll see this for your donation accounts. And basically maybe you're curious, okay, well, how much am I left with after last year in my donations? If you pull up that 9791 object code in your current budget, once we load it, you'll find what you're left with. Okay, so we haven't loaded it yet because we're still closing the books for 1920, but once we close completely, we'll have the ending fund balance, and then we'll have this beginning fund balance for you. So if you have funds there in your donation account, you can't spend it in 9791, but you'll want to contact your budget person, which I think for most of the donations, it's going to be Dorothy Hinshaw, and let her know, okay, I see I have a beginning fund balance of $5,000. I'd like to spend it in this way this year. And you just let her know, along with LCAP information. Okay, just some really common account codes. So the 4300 series is going to be supplies, and 4400 series is going to be equipment. So anytime an individual item is $500 or more, and we're talking about one item, so like one printer, say a printer's $490, and then with tax it takes it over that 500, we actually consider it equipment, and we need to code it to 4400 object code. 5800 object code, we consider software licenses will code to 5800. Okay, this slide's all about the function. So the segment right next to the object type to the left. So these are just very common function codes. what we see a lot is function 1000, which is instruction. So anytime you have the teacher working with the students in the classroom or through virtual meetings or classified instructional aid working in the classroom or tutoring, whatever it might be, the function is going to be 1000. But we can't always use that function. Sometimes we have, oh, let me backtrack a little bit. Even if you have teachers going on a conference for PD, we're still going to code that to 1000 instruction because the teacher's salary is coded to 1000. So basically the function for the travel and conference will follow the function of their salary account code. So for example, you have teachers going on a PD conference, we're going to code that to 1000 instruction. But if a principal is going to a conference, we're actually going to follow the principal's salary account, and it's going to be coded to function 2700 school admin. Same thing with the office manager. Or if you're purchasing, you know, office supplies or something like that, we would use function 2700. Function 2100, not as common as the other two above, but that's something we use for like a TOSA. You know, they're not really working in the classroom with the kids directly, but they may be assisting in other ways, helping teachers instruct, maybe curriculum development, something like that. We would use function 2100. Another function code that we can use is function 2495, parent participation. So anytime you are involving parents in the education of their kids, we would want to use function 2495. And this is just a few. You know, if you want a full list and a full description of what these codes are, that chart of accounts PDF version will go into depth into all this stuff, and it's what we use daily. All right, so this slide's all about the goal. Now we have some very, very common, just general goals. We have 1110, which is simply regular ed K through 12. We generally use this goal with restricted resources like Title I. Another general, kind of generic goal is 1111, which is general ed. And we generally use this goal with the unrestricted resources, such as your unrestricted discretionary. And there's many, many, many more. But let me explain a little bit why we have so many goals. So I think you're already aware of this, but just in case, you know, every account we have, every single expense account is tied to our local control accountability plan, also known as the LCAP. But we run into some complications system-wise with how we actually do that. So take the example below. We have an account code, right? We have 3 separate account codes, but they're all the same. It's unrestricted discretionary, it's instructional function, it's instructional supplies, and it's the same school site. But notice the LCAP goal, right? There's 3 different LCAP goals using the same exact code. We cannot actually make this work in our system. We cannot map the same account string to 3 different LCAP goals. So what we end up doing, what we have to do, we have to differentiate our account string somehow so that we're able to map or align to the LCAP goals that the site is choosing. So for example, I went to the chart of accounts, I went to the PDF version with all the different, that's searchable, and I looked for the word intervention. And I found that we have a very specific goal that has intervention in the name, and the code's 1305. So that was perfect, right? I'm able to plug in, I'm able to use that goal 1305, which will differentiate the account string. And that way, and it still makes sense because it says intervention right in the name. And that way I'm able to tie to the LCAP of your choosing, which in this example is intervention programs. Same idea with the next one. The LCAP goal in this example is something related to STEM or STEAM. So I had to differentiate the account string in order to align to that very specific LCAP goal the site's choosing. Search through the chart of accounts, look for the verbiage STEM or STEAM, found goal 1324, works perfectly. it's appropriate. It has stem seam in the name. It differentiates the account string, and we're able to map it to the LCAP goal of your choosing. But just something to keep in mind, you know, in this example, right, we have 3 different supply accounts that tie out to 3 different LCAP goals. So we align, the account code basically is driven by the LCAP goal you choose. But say you choose one LCAP goal, you know, 101009, and maybe that's completely applicable. You know, in that case, if there's just one LCAP goal, instructional supplies, then we just use one account code, and it kind of simplifies the way the account works. But that's totally your call. Okay, so running your budget report, and Alicia already touched on this, so I'm not going to go into depth, but I guess I will just go through it just for the sake of it. Many of you, you know, probably already have access to it, and you do this daily, but I know some of you don't have access because we're asked to run the report. But if for some reason, if you don't have access, please contact TIS so that you can gain access, because if you don't have your budget, you're kind of flying blind in terms of the financials. So, okay, so, and I won't take a whole lot of time on this, guys. I'm just gonna kind of go through it. So I'm gonna type in the district website. I'm going to sign into the staff portal. Okay, and then under the home section, I'm gonna go down to the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to access Unified Workspace, formerly SA Cloud. So you should be able to, even if you're not going through VPN, you know, you're at home working remotely, this is the way you'd access your budget. So Unified Workspace, okay? And, you know, just like Alicia mentioned, if you're probably not going to have this Oracle icon, Oracle BI 12, that's the one you want to find. So what you'll have to do, you have to go to the magnifying glass and type in Oracle BI 12 or just Oracle. But the one you want to select is the Oracle BI 12. Hit that icon. Okay. And here we have the financial dashboard, right? By default, you're going to come up with the current period. We're in August, pulls that up. Also by default, it's going to pull up all your different discretionary resources. So it's not pulling up every single account. It's not pulling up fund resources that that fund the teacher's salaries and things like that. Only resources where you have the discretion to spend as you see fit. Also, you should see your school site name there. And then by default, it's going to show up the object code range of all expenditures. And you could change that. You know, you can change that to whatever you want to see. Say you want to just look at certificated salaries, you'd use the range 1,000 through 1,000. Or say you want to look at non-payroll expense, you'd look at 4,000 through 7,999. Or maybe you're curious about your beginning fund balance, you know, for your donation accounts that you have left over from last year. You plug in 9791 to 9791. And then once you set your parameters to what you want, what you would do is hit apply. That'll apply whatever parameters you set up in the top here. And basically your report, you know, this is your report down here, your funds available report. And I would probably download it to Excel. You know, you can export it, but you know, it's going to have all the information like LCAP, goal, action, service, the current period, your account string, all the different segment names, and of course, the bulk of the report, the meat and potatoes is the budget, encumbrance, funds available, and then percent available that you have. So I'll just export real quick to Excel. Well, actually I won't, because I don't think it would show up on your end. I'd have to share my screen again, but that's how to access the report. All right, I'm going to go back to my slideshow. Okay, so that was running your budget report. Okay, and this is the last slide, folks. So just some reminders, tips. For Title I budget transfer requests, please email the request to Sergio Chavez and then CC the budget person handling Title I. And for right now, that's me until we have a replacement person that'll handle Title I. And the reason we do that is Sergio, Mr. Chavez, he oversees Title I expenditures, right? So he wants to make sure that it's allowed in Title I. If for some reason it's not, he'll just let you know that, and then I won't process the budget transfer. But that way, we can catch anything before you actually have to enter the purchase rec or the extra pay. Also keep in mind the funds available report will only show you accounts where you have financial activity. It will not show you every single account that's available to you or every single account that's been set up in the past. It only shows you where you actually set up budget to begin with, or transferred budget, or maybe you have actual expenditures, no budget, whatever it might be. It only shows you accounts where you have financial activity. But that being said, please make sure that when you enter a purchase rec or whatever the purchase might be, please look at the account string and do your best to determine, okay, is this the right account to be using? Please don't use the account just because there's budget there. So if you would, you know, please try and decide, okay, what would be the best account code to use by reviewing the chart of accounts. Also, budget staff, myself, we're all here to assist in any way we can to help determine the account string. But it'd be great if you also tried to do it. But so then what you do, say you don't have an account string available, you would just do a budget transfer request to that new account, and no problem at all. Just a reminder, for budget transfers, please write a description of the proposed expenditure. So we try and stay away from very generic things like, you know, transferring 2,000 to supplies. I know in all cases, you know, it's not possible in all scenarios, but if you have the specifics, it's best to put it in the description, and you don't have to go overboard with it, just to kind of, you know, in general type of description, like, okay, we're transferring 2,000 for Avid conference in July, or whatever it might be. Another tip is, remember that the budget is an annual plan, right? So kind of best case scenario, the ideal situation is to figure out what you need for the entire year, right? For the entire school year. And put the budget in, you know, transfer budget where you need it for that entire year. You want to kind of avoid the multiple budget transfer requests. If you have a plan for the year, you can get the budget in for that year. And of course, plans change over time, but you want to avoid doing many budget transfer requests by planning for the year. Lastly, remember that with salaries, there's always statutory benefits on top. So if you request a budget transfer of 5,000 from supplies to teacher extra duty, we're going to transfer the 5,000, but you'll actually end up with less in the salary account, because we also have to budget for the statutory benefits. So use that handy dandy employee benefit calculator to figure out exactly, you know, the estimate that you need, and then you'd want to transfer the entire salary and benefit cost. All right, everyone, that's it from my end. And now it's time for questions.
Dave, somebody would like you to go back and share the calculator, the employee benefits calculator.
Okay.
Could you please go back
Sure.
to that, please? Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so that benefits calculator. Okay, so here it is. Can you guys see it okay?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. So it's basically this Excel template, right? And it's on our district website. And the first step is selecting the pay type. So you need to know if the planned work is for certificated staff or is it for classified? And we have these different categories that are just, generic categories: certificated extra duty, classified overtime, certificated sub, classified sub, certificated stipend. Okay, so say you're working with needing to put in an extra pay for classified overtime. All right, so you select classified overtime, and then once you have the estimated salary amount, which you could use the on the dashboard, there's a tab for where you can get your staff's estimated hourly rates and also statutory benefits. But you could use that tool to come up with this salary estimate. So say you come up with, okay, I think we're going to pay out $2,000 in classified overtime for the entire 2021 year for the office manager, or whatever it might be. Okay. Then on top of that salary, it calculates the different employee benefits, right? So the total cost for this estimate, right, is actually $2,183. So say you didn't have the budget in your classified OT account. Say you're going to use unrestricted discretionary, but you don't see the line there, but you have something in supplies. You could, what you would do is say you want to transfer from supplies to this classified OT account. You would request a budget transfer in the amount of $2,183 from your supply account into your classified OT account. And what you would do in the email, you'd want to specify this is for salary and benefits. If you wanted to get really precise, you could even say, okay, salary is 2,000, benefits is 183, and then we'd put in the budget accordingly. So, any other questions, or did I address the question with that answer?
Dave, can I show them something quick on the dashboard? Can you bring the dashboard? I need to show them something.
Sure.
If that is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do that.
The question was earlier, how well do I know how I'm managing my budget? The graph that you see in front of you on the dashboard is to help you specifically for that. If you run the graph for the period of June 20th and the fiscal year 2020, it will show you how well you're spending your encumbrances, your actuals, and your funds available at the end of the year. And that's a measure of how well you've been doing every single year. So it's likely most of you are underspending, not overspending, because you worry so much about exceeding your limits. So one way to do that is just look at the graph at the end of the fiscal year, preferably in June, not later, because that's when the budget is still there for you to spend from. So in this case, if you look at that budget staffing, you would see that pretty much the money was spent and there's no negatives. And the only area where they could have spent more is in the 4,000 to the 4,999 range, if they wanted to. So by looking at the graphs at the end of the fiscal year, you can pretty much get a good idea of how well you're spending. And you can do the same thing every 6 months. Just check how well my encumbrance, which is my commitment to buy stuff, against the actuals, which is the checks that have been cut. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. So Lupe, I guess I'll pass it over to you, or do you see more questions?
Hey, there's a question on the chat regarding the encumbrances, actuals, and funds available. Encumbrances is basically, it's like warehouse orders, purchase orders, those are the encumbrances. Actuals is when accounting makes the payment and cash is out the door. That becomes actuals. So basically, if you are have a requisition for $100 to Office Depot, you're buying supplies, office supplies, and then when you receive the items, you receive the items and accounting receive the invoice for $100. So your encumbrances will be zero out, and now accounting is making payment to Office Depot. That's the difference between encumbrance and accounting. And your funds available is basically your budget minus your purchase, your encumbrances minus the actuals. That's your funds available. And David can show it to you on the report.
Yeah. Just to add to what Swan is saying, so here's your typical funds available report. You always have your budget. Then the next column is the encumbrance, which is basically like you put in a purchase rec, right? It's going to show up in the encumbrance column as like a reserve. It's like an obligation to spend money. It's not actually spent yet, but you're intending to spend it, right? So it takes it from your funds available. Then that purchase rec that you entered eventually becomes a PO. Purchasing will make it an official PO once it's fully approved. It goes to the vendor. Then eventually you'll receive invoices, right? Those invoices are paid by accounting. And once accounting pays the invoice, your encumbrance will be lessened by the amount of the invoice payment, and the payment will show up in the actual column. So the actual column, those are your expenses, right? Your encumbrance column is basically an estimate that shows your POs, right? And then your funds available is your budget, less your encumbrance, less your actual expenditures. One thing to note, our system, it only encumbers non-payroll data, right? The 4000s through the 7999 object range. It will not encumber your payroll. So you basically have to kind of keep track of that on your own. It's basically, you could make the assumption that, okay, the budget we have in payroll is going to be spent. And then what happens is you submit extra pay, right? And your budget should cover that extra pay. But it's fully dependent on work being performed, right? So then staff will turn in the time cards, and eventually payroll will pay it. But so that's one thing just to note, kind of a, you have to be careful if you're transferring budget from payroll lines, because you have to be aware of, well, what's the plan? Did I submit extra pay forms for that budget or not? And in some cases it may be, maybe you're at mid-year and you're finding that, hey, I submitted these extra pay forms at the beginning of the year and budget's set up here, but you know what? The work's actually not being performed and it's not going to be performed. In that scenario, you could actually transfer budget from those payroll accounts into supplies to spend it out, for example. So does that answer the question on budget, encumbrance, actuals, and the differences of? Or any other questions related to it?
Dave, if you can actually explain one budget, that is the total amount that you actually budgeted, right? The encumbrance, that is a requisition that you created because eventually, you're gonna have to pay for it. Accounting is going to have to. 3, actual, it shows at 2,830, which it seems to me like it's 3,000, which is one budget minus the encumbrance, right?
Yeah, so
Lupe, what's
you're
going on with that? What's going on with that? I don't understand that.
okay. So like this one account line, for example, right? This is in the our department budget, it's equipment. So we set up a budget of $3,922.29. And to date, we've actually spent $2,830.29, right? And then, but what's left encumbered is $1,092. So this is basically either a full PO or part of a PO. But in any case, to me, looking at this, it means it hasn't been paid yet, right? And actually, it might mean like, I don't, maybe I set up a PO and I'm not gonna actually I'm not gonna pay this out. But the zero funds available is basically your budget minus the 1,092 encumbrance, because it wants to reserve the budget, because it should. It's a potential expense, right? And then you have your actual expense, the fact, right, of $2,830.29, leaving zero available. There's nothing available to transfer out. Now, say you find that, okay, this encumbrance, this is for Office Depot, and you know what, I don't need it. What you could do is contact purchasing, say, oh, can you close out the PO? I have 1,092 available, the system's showing, but I'm not gonna spend it. I don't need that PO any longer. Can you please close it out? Purchasing will close out that PO. Once they do that, the encumbrance with the 1,092 available to transfer out where you need it. That's kind of the general concept.
Well, thank you everybody for participating in this training.